Hey everybody, I picked up a knife making hobby last year and I am not very good at it. So today I come to you as Jacob Marley to show you my shame chain, which I have forged link by link. I have really cranked out some questionable stuff, which you are about to see. Hopefully we can learn from my mistakes together for anyone who's interested. So let's get this train wreck started. First I'm going to look at the tools I use. You see this angle grinder here, which I use to sort of shape the metal bar to start with. And then I take that metal bar over to the grizzly grinder there. This is a very powerful grinder made for knife making, but it has two speeds. It's either off or peeling your face. It's extremely fast and a little bit difficult to use. It came with a platen that wasn't very good, so I had to harden some 01 tool steel and put new platen on it. At any rate, it's challenging. And here we go. Yes, that is a knife. It's a file knife. I made a couple file knives as my first knives. I even put a lanyard hole on it, guys. Does this knife need a lanyard? No. I don't know what I was doing. This would be rejected as a prison shank. It would be discarded in a prison riot. It is worth -2 cigarettes in prison. So this is how I did it. You take files. I put mine in this little grill, covered it with coals, and annealed the steel because you can't just grind a file. It's made to grind metal and it's very difficult to work with that hard. So you anneal it, and then boom, out pops this crazy disaster. So I don't know what to say except that I'm just utterly ashamed. But here's what I learned. When you're annealing these knives, if you're going to use a method like this, just heaping coals on top of it, it works well. It'll soften the steel. But when the knife cools, it doesn't cool uniformly always because there's not the same amount of coals on top of the whole thing. So as it cools, it will bend if it doesn't cool evenly. So you have to be careful, and you might want to think about getting like a little kiln or something to anneal stuff. So here's the next link in my chain of shame. I made a mistake with the angle grinder, cutting the bar here to shape this knife. So I tried to cover it up by putting this hole as part of a design near the ricasso there. Except there's not really ricasso because I didn't know how to do plunge lines. So this is just sort of one giant convex type of grind with a bevel on the blade. This is my first attempt at micarta. I used a linen that was way too thick, and the result is completely horribly ugly. It's a tough little knife. Completely 100% ugly. Does it cut? Yes. Alright, so I wanted to get fancy and do something bigger. Here's me trying to use the rest of that ugly linen micarta that I made. And I took a big piece of steel, and I spent a lot of time shaping it, putting this grind on it, and I didn't heat treat it well. So I messed up the heat treat. I don't know what to say. I was using a little kiln, and I didn't do the soak right or something. But I can tell you, after about 12 hours of grinding and shaping and polishing, to take a swing at wood with it and have it just totally deform is completely crushing. So I moved to sending my knife to professional heat treating, basically. Here's the next knife I made. Still trying to use up the micarta, and I put a Duracoat finish on it, which I applied, I don't know, as well as a third grader might. It is really horrifyingly bad Duracoat finish, and I had the same problem, bad heat treat. Again, heartbreaking after spending that much time. So you can take a file across the knife after you heat treat it, and if it skids off, you know it's heat treated well. If it doesn't, you need to anneal the sucker and heat treat it again, or like I have started doing, just sending it off for heat treatment. So here's a success, and I want to show it to you to couch the failure that's about to come. This is a little folding knife with titanium liners. It's a liner lock that I made for my father-in-law. I actually did a pretty decent job on it. It's the first time I tried a folding knife. I can't believe it came out well. It locks up perfectly. The detente ball slips in and out just fine, so it stays shut. And it's really nice. So I just sort of wing-dinged it on my second round. and I end up with these titanium liners and a blade, and there's about 6 different attempts there to properly place a stop pin. And you can see it locks up sort of loose, and then as the pivot pin is placed, as it comes around, the blade actually catches across the stop pin hole, and I can't remove any more stock because it won't lock up after that. It won't meet the titanium liner lock. So I don't know what to say. This is also about 8 hours of drilling and grinding. Titanium is brutal to work with. It takes forever to grind. And that blade, I'm sort of proud of it. It just doesn't line up. So straight to the trash. What I learned is you can't wing a folding knife. So I've gone to Inkscape, just like Sugar Creek Forge on YouTube recommends, and drawn out this to scale knife. And you can rotate it in Inkscape around the pins and make sure everything lines up just fine. All right. So this is a more recent knife. I feel like I did a pretty good job on the handle. Put some liners on it that look sort of nice. So you're asking yourself, well, I don't know, it looks pretty decent. I mean, you even got some plunge lines on there, and yeah, the finish isn't great. It's still a pretty rough finish. So what's the deal? Well, it's too thin. The blade is very thin, about half an inch from the plunge line in the ricasso area. You can see right where my thumb is. It thins out because I put try to take down a very thin edge all the way across to make it essentially a convex edge, and I ended up thinning it out, and so there's actually even a little nick there because it just got so thin. So lesson learned is to leave a dime-sized area before heat treat there, so you can see the edge, or where the bevel is going to be, is about the thickness of a dime now, and I'm done grinding. So this knife is going to go to heat treat, and when it comes back, I'll work on placing a beveled edge, and I can prevent that. Here's the last knife to look at, and you're probably saying, well, I mean, that doesn't look too bad. It's not the best looking knife in the world, but you don't see any obvious mistakes. So I really rushed the end of this knife. I was trying to just get it done, and you can see there's some flat spots around the pins. So when I was forming the handle and shaping the handle on the grinder, I did a fine job. But when I went to sand it, I didn't use all the sandpaper I should have used. You really need to start with a low grit, 100, 200, and then work your way up slowly, 400, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, then buff it. And I really skipped the lower grit sandpaper in an effort to save time. The result is that I have these flat spots that didn't get sanded down, and so I'll probably have to go back and resand this. And you can even see the pins have some scuffing on them because there just wasn't enough sanding. So you can't save time by not using the correct sandpaper. So there it is, Misadventures in Knife Making. I'm going to leave you with this still picture as a reminder to put a lanyard hole on every knife you make. I've had some successes, and I've had more than my share of failures. This is a short list of my failures, trust me. But it's been a lot of fun, and if you guys have an interest in knife making, have some tips for me, let's start a conversation. Post below. Thanks, guys.